and welcome back to Ashley Main Makes. So today I'm going to be making one of the best-selling patterns of all time from 1952, Butterick 6015, or the Walkaway dress. This pattern was generously provided to me by Stephanie Canada here on YouTube as a challenge, that we test out the marketing claim that you could start this dress after breakfast and finish it for a luncheon. Now, this comes with a big fat caveat that we all magically received our perfect size of pattern magically fitted to us. So before I do my speed run, I'm going to be walking you through grading this pattern up and doing an FBA. So let's get started. All right, so step one, I got busy and taped all these pieces together, which I hate and generally don't do. So don't mind the wibbliness, I definitely did it on this carpet. So all I did was I just went ahead and traced that onto some grid paper. You technically don't need some grid paper, but this makes it a lot easier when you're trying to cut straight lines up and down and keep everything straight. This grid paper is like absolutely ancient. So what I'm doing is this is going to be a two-step grading process. So firstly, I'm going to be following this guideline from Threads. I'll leave the article down below. I've done a few grade ups a few times. I haven't done it in a while, but because we are adding a whopping 19 inches to this, I'm going to do this as properly as possible and adding both width and length to make sure we're going up and over. And I printed out their chart here, and I've just translated what that means for me in actual inches. So they tell you how much of your allocated grade to add. Your allocated grade is a quarter of your overall grade. So obviously our pattern is not a block pattern like this, doesn't look like this. It's the Walkaway dress, so it's three pieces in a weird place. So I took the handy dandy picture of the back of the pattern and I blew it up, and then I just drew the corresponding lines from this guideline onto there. So you can see roughly kind of where the lines are and where they correspond. The main thing is to try and split them up, like, you know, we have a line in the arm that extends the arm out. We've got one that extends the neckline. We've got one that extends the side, and so on and so forth. I'm definitely going to be doing the front first, then we're going to work onto the back. And then once we figured out that waist length, this skirt is going to be really easy to upsize, and we're going to be like way less precise about that. So all I've done is I've drawn these corresponding lines that I figured out onto my actual pattern here with their numbers, so I know how much to add. So what I'm going to do is cut along all these lines and add some width to them. I have this all graded up, see all those stripes there, to my high bust measurement. And then I've gone ahead and traced the lines on for my FBA. You can see the original dart here in pink, and then the side dart here. And all I've done is found where they connected, which is the apex point. And I've drawn a few lines. So one straight up through, one about a third of the way down in the arm side, and then one through the side dart. There's a great tutorial of how to do this on the Curvy Sewing Collective, which I'll leave down below, which is completely where I learned how to do an FBA. So all I'm gonna do is drag this apart. I gotta go get some paper to go underneath, but I'm gonna drag this apart 2.5 inches to make up for my like half of what my total bust adjustment is. So I'm just going to tape some paper in behind that and figure out what this new dart situation is going to be. All right, so I've got that all taped down, and then I ran to the mirror and marked actually where my bust apex is. You really didn't need to witness that. That was awkward as hell considering how giant this piece was. So I did my best. It might be a little off. I have a sneaking suspicion this might be a little bit more off, but we'll get there when we get up to mock-up stage. Apex point. Now I've backed off 2 inches away, and then I've drawn in my dart to both ends of the leg points. And then this pattern in particular has this weird slit to accommodate the dart. I'm not entirely positive how that's gonna work, but I think that's how you would fold it. So I folded the paper here to kind of figure it out and what that would look like. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out. And then this waist dart here would be done in a similar manner. Now, if you're an hourglass and you're just adjusting for the bust, you would have this go out from this point all the way out to here and back in to take out the extra fullness. For me, this will kind of act like a cheater full belly adjustment, and it's gonna be fairly slight, like 1.5 inches. So I think what I'm gonna do is do this a mock-up stage and figure out how big that dart needs to be. Same kind of goes for these side darts here. These are still the original, and I imagine that's gonna have to change and shift a bit based on looking at it in the mirror. So we'll play around when we get there. All right, so we're back on this back piece here, and I've added all my grading levels. Now this back piece wraps from all the way from the center back here all the way to the center front with those buttons. So to the last couple pieces, I've actually split my full belly, full bust adjustment between the two. So we did a 2.5 inch adjustment to half the pattern. So it would be, you know, 1.25 plus 1.25 is 2.5. So each of these sections got a 2.5 adder to make up that difference. Now we'll see what this ends up shaking out like depending on how much dart I add back in, like fold it out and figure out how much we need to lose when we go to do the mock-up. But I just need this length for when we do that so that I actually have something to like wrap around to check the fit. So we're just doing the whole damn thing, and then if we have to fold some of this back and get rid of some of it, we can do. I still have to add the grades this way, but I was just waiting to sort all this out before I got to that point. I know I've done all the math at this point, but you ever get to the point in the project where you're just like, this is a lot and this is a lot more than I thought? We're at that point, even though we're basically just about done patterning. So, you know, when people say just grade and then you see this nonsense, it's just the pain, so much pain. So I was just about to cut out the mock-up, and I've realized a small issue with the challenge on this. So I just folded this, because obviously I'm not going to cut out the whole length of it. I don't need to. But this whole piece is going to be wider than my 45-inch wide fabric. That makes total sense considering my bust is larger than 45 inches. But that means I am going to have to take this 3-piece pattern and make it more pieces. So I'm thinking this dart here might have to become a side seam. I don't know if that's cheating or not, but it is what it is. I don't know how I'm gonna get around that. Same thing goes for this whole piece with this whole wide arm. I'm probably gonna have to add, probably somewhere about there, a seam, like a side seam. I'll use my muslin fabric that's like the extra wide muslin fabric that I've got so that I can figure that out. But yeah, that's gonna make this a bit more challenging. We're gonna have to go off script a bit. I hope everybody understands. Going a little off the pattern, but it is what it is, but we're gonna get there, and let's move on. All right, so I have the mock-up here all cut out and marked up, and I've actually just marked it up with Sharpie here so I can see what's going on. I have my bust dart drawn in, and then kind of the placement of these two vertical darts. I didn't draw their exact fullness in because I'm going to go ahead and pinch those out when I've got it on. I've also marked in the waistline because that's going to be really important to determine how this thing is fitting. Might be too long or too short, so that's going to play a lot into the fit. I've also cut off this mock-up just after this lower dart, so we don't need the whole thing obviously to mock up and just to see what's going on. So I'm gonna start with this. We're gonna see how it goes and go from there. Right, so we are back here with the mock-up on, and it's actually not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. It only needs like a few tweaks, which is really great. So first things first, obviously the shoulders are a bit off. You can see it's sticking up here at my neck a little bit. This is not really a grading problem actually. This is more just a me problem. I have super straight shoulders, so this is pretty common adjustment for me. It's not that common of adjustment in general. I would say slope shoulders is probably a lot more common than super straight shoulders, but you can see it's like got a lot of tension here and it's loose here. So we're gonna have to straighten off this seam. The other thing we need to do is the bust darts. So you can see it's trying to create its own little bit of extra bust dart there at the end. So these will just need to be lengthened a bit forward to get rid of that pooling. So that's an easy thing. I'll just pin that and mark that. The other major thing that needs to be fixed is a bit more of a grading problem. So you can see that this waistline is way below my actual waist, so I'll need to shorten this. Some of that might correct this gap with those back piece overlaps, but I don't know why this is like this particularly, because if anything, this should have been too long. The other thing is I'm gonna add a dart in here, just under the bust. Pretty small one for me, which is what I suspected, but I'll have to figure out like how to smooth that pooling away. All right, so we are back. And this is dramatically better. I actually think it's really great, other than the fact it's in ugly ass muslin fabric. There was actually a fitting you didn't see off camera here. So I went ahead and adjusted just the shoulder line first and this bust dart. And actually that magically fixed everything.
Math is a really cool thing.
It just goes to show that fixing the shoulders, they're kind of the hanger of everything. Once you fix that, most things fall in line. So I fixed the bust darts. I brought them quite a bit more forward. In this pattern, I think they kind of need to be. You need that little bit of point. I can back it off just like a smidgen more, but you know, relatively good. My apex did move forward just like half an inch of where I marked, and then that little bit that I pinched out here for this dart, and actually now that sits really great. I'm really happy with it. I didn't have to actually move the waist at all. If I had moved that gigantic amount, we would have had like a Bridgerton Empire waist dress. So actually I'm ultra happy with this. So a few of you were wondering from that last Rose Claire video how I went back from my mock-up back onto paper. So all I've done here is I've actually taken my mock-up apart. So those areas that I pinched out and had sewn up to test, I've just taken this whole dart apart and I've just traced over where the holes were created by my sewing machine. I've just gone ahead and traced over it with my pink Sharpie here. So you can see where my old one was compared to my new dart. This was my old kind of apex. This is where it is moved closer to the center. And then again, I've done it over this dart here. So just where those, you can see exactly where that sewing is in the mock-up. So that gives you a really good idea of what we're doing here. Just gonna trace this directly onto the tracing paper from my mock-up. If you wanted to, if you were just doing small tweaks, you could put it back on your traced copy. Obviously mine is a gong show at this point and is like mostly tape. So this is just gonna be a lot easier. And I'm gonna trace it back onto my paper. All right, so here's that back piece. So again, same thing. I've got my mock-up here. I unpicked the like dart. Just FYI, I basted these darts in. I didn't like hard sew them in just to make this easier, just like in anticipation of this. But I've left in this other kind of tuck I took out of it to reduce like what was going on there. Just because I'm not like narrowing back in, I needed to take that out just because I'm exceptionally straight up and down. So I've just like left that in there and then I've just curved this off. So there's nothing really like particular about it. I didn't use a French curve or anything. In fact, often I find they're like too small for like plus size curves. I could be wrong. Maybe someone's got like a magical plus size set out there, but so I just kind of like generally, you can see I kind of like went back and forth a bit, whatever. So I've like kind of just smoothed it off, gone to the end down there. Again, on the bottom, same thing, smoothed it off, made it nice and tight. In this case, I'm actually gonna add a seam down the back. I feel like this is gonna be the least disruptive in terms of my width of fabric. So I'm gonna have to sew a couple extra seams, but we kind of went through that earlier, so that sucks. But I made sure that I added my 5/8 seam allowance here so that I have enough room to attach my pieces back together. So yeah, so simple enough. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. For the other big wrap skirt, I'm just going to use that charm pattern circle skirt I used in my last video, and because it's already cut out and done and basically the right size, I just folded back the little bit extra that I had. So I measured the back piece that has the full width of the entire waist and made this fit that. So we're just gonna go with that. I'm not gonna worry about grading it. I'm done with that. So here is the front piece versus the original. And as you can see, it's pretty close. It is definitely a lot bigger, but it all really worked out well. The major differences obviously are the dart lengths, and then also that I have to have this separate side piece just because of the width of the fabric. I also have omitted that side dart. I'm really straight up and down other than my boobs, so I did not need it. But yeah, I'm sewing an extra seam, so I feel like that's fair. Here are the backs, and obviously you can tell these are a heck of a lot different, just with shape of the shoulder, shape of that. It's like definitely a lot straighter. That is also because I omitted that side dart because I didn't need it, so I don't need that curve there either. Good morning. So we are back and I'm just about ready to go. It's like 8:57. Obviously I didn't get my 8 a.m. start, but this is pretty true to form. If it was me making this project, I really doubt I would have got my ass up at 8 for like a noon luncheon to get it done by. So, you know, I have my cup of tea. I'm a tea person, and so we're gonna get going. Actually, I have kind of the optimal situation today. We're actually having our furniture reupholstered, so I have full reign of floor troll action in our living room. So I'm just gonna get started. I'm gonna lay out my fabric. I'm actually gonna start with the back and the circle skirt, probably circle skirt first. I am very concerned based on looking at the fabric last night that I probably don't have enough fabric. So if we have to do the contrast view, we will. There might be a trip in here. I'm really hoping not, but I'm gonna start the clock. I'm gonna lay out the fabric. We're gonna cut as much as we can. Hopefully we can cut the whole thing, and then we're gonna go from there. So, as you saw, I ran out of fabric. I kind of suspected that would happen, unfortunately, so I'm gonna have to take a ride. So, I'm here at Beehive Craft Studio here in Austin. This is in North Austin, so it is a little bit far from my house. It's about a 20-25 minute drive for me. But it is, of course, really good to support local, and it's a really cute little shop. They carry a lot of like Ruby Star and other things like that. But I'm really hoping they have something that's gonna work, and I'm just gonna go in and see what they have. So welcome back. Today is day 2, and hopefully we have enough fabric today. And we're gonna do the full speed run. I have my bobbins wound. I have my iron set up. Hopefully we're just gonna rock this and roll. This is what I picked out yesterday. It is a beautiful Ruby Star heirloom, they're calling it, fabric. It is a quilting fabric, but it's a little bit better, so the drape is a little bit nicer. And I think it goes really well with my floral fabric and still keeps it on the 50s theme. I couldn't find an exact match for the green, but I think that's gonna go really nice, and that pop of green binding is gonna be fun. So I'm gonna start the timer again and we're gonna go. So we're getting into the speed run here in earnest. And even at 2,000 times speed, this is still really long, so feel free to skip this bit if you like. There are chapters and timestamps down below. But for you, those of you that want to stick around, this pretty much includes the entire sewing. The only bits that aren't included is where I was hand sewing or ironing off camera. Obviously I wasn't like into moving my camera and stuff around, resetting that up while I was trying to do this as a speed run, so forgive me on that. You will see that I tried like one of those internet hacks with like a little cardboard thing to try and do the binding in one pass, and which I ended up giving up here. But other than that, I hope you enjoy watching me stress sew with chill music. Right, so almost 5 hours later, and we're technically done. I am exhausted, I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I had all the advantage of knowing in advance, like I had all my bobbins loaded and everything else and my pattern ready to go. So do I think it's reasonable to do it before lunch? Sorta kinda. Like, maybe if it's like a luncheon, like an afternoon luncheon, maybe. But one of the issues that has happened is, if you check where my buttons are, my loops are here, this is stretched. So one of the issues with doing binding like this, all of this side is on the bias, and so that all got stretched when I put the binding on because I was sewing like a mad person. And so now it's about like, God, nearly 10 inches too big because it's overlapping like 5 inches on either side. You can see kind of how the band is sitting in the back. I have a little bit of wibbling at the neck, but it's like not the worst actually. So yeah, so that was the problem. I did end up stretching that whole bias piece. It's pretty shitty. It's not unfixable. I think what I'm gonna do first is I'm actually gonna throw this in the wash and dryer and see if that will help shrink some of this back up and tighten the binding up a bit. If, in fact, that probably won't take out all of this, but it'll probably make it closer. And then when I go, then I can cut off, you know, some and rebind this and re-put this button and loops thing back on, which is really annoying because this probably took me half hour of the 5 hours. I'm just not that great of a hand sewer. So, you know, putting on buttons, I've never speed buttoned. You know, that's usually like a chill thing for me. So yeah, I just basted the hem in place so it'll be easy to take out when it inevitably drops. Other than that, I mean, I think it's pretty adorable. Looks better on me than I thought. But yeah, this whole center front, like armhole stretching, 'cause you can see it's like not sticking off my arm as much as it did in the mock-up. So it's pretty good. We're gonna wash it and then fix this, obviously, before we do something else. I would not be able to wear this to lunch is the verdict. I would have had to wear something else. So I'm hungry. I gotta go make dinner and then fix this, wash this, fix this. In conclusion, I'm mostly just happy I finished this dress. There are some things you make for the garment, and then there's some things that you make just for the challenge. I did a lot of things I don't normally do. I taped a pattern together, I did grading, and actually it turned out great. I basically only had to make my standard Big 4 adjustments. The only thing that was a little off was that random 3 inches in the middle that I added. I ended up taking almost the exact same amount out of the dress after the fact, so I don't really understand what happened there other than maybe the dress slid around during my mock-up process. I don't think I'm super happy with the style of this dress on me, and I wasn't sure that I would be, to be honest. I don't know if the silhouette suits me very well, and I think it also looks a little Holly Hobby. I think some of the things contributing to that are obviously the quilting cotton that I used in the middle. I think if I'd had enough sateen, that might have been a bit better, even though it's high quality. And just the sheer amount of binding. I just don't think that's something you see all the time anymore. Do I think this is the fastest dress in the world? Definitely not. Even though it's only 3 pattern pieces, it does include a full circle skirt. So that's a lot to hem. Also considering the fact that I just basted it up to finish within the time before my luncheon. So I would have to take it down and re-hem it later. And I will have to if I want to wear it out again, just because the hem will probably drop. If I was the type of person that could put binding on in one pass, it might have been a bit faster. But that being said, I think any pattern that you've made before is probably faster than this dress. So again, a big thank you to Stephanie Cata for putting together this challenge. It was a lot of fun and it was really good to push myself. So let me know, do you like this dress? Have you made a walkaway dress before? Have you heard about a walkaway dress before? I feel like this is a big thing in the sewing community. I could be wrong. And also a big thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far. I just hit 100 subscribers a little over a month ago, and the other day we just unlocked the community tab. So please subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and let me know what you'd like to see. Thank you so much for watching. Bye! This was pattern. Started after breakfast and breakfast. So again, a big thank you to Stephanie Canada for one of the... I fucked up already.